All right, welcome in everyone. My name is Naila Harris. I am an alum of Global Citizen Year. Myself and the wonderful Angel Wadibia, who I will give an opportunity to introduce herself, will be speaking with you all and Baratunde Thurston today. Um, nice to meet you all.
Hello, thank you so much for that introduction, Naila. Hi, I'm Angel, and I'm really excited to get to talk to you guys and be in conversation with Baratunde. I think this is going to be really amazing.
So a little bit about myself. I mentioned I am an alum of GCY. I happened upon the program in my senior year of high school. When I wasn't sure about where I wanted to go next, Global Citizen Year was right there to give me an opportunity to gain a global perspective and really acted as probably one of the most transformative years of my life. So I'm very grateful for the experience. If you all are new to us, by the way, I'm also a board member. I am the standing alumni board member of Global Citizen Year. We are a United States-based nonprofit organization with a mission to transform the next generation of leaders in the world. Okay, so welcome you all to this very special meeting where you all will understand why we are reshaping youth to become leaders like Baratunde is. We understand that through empathy, committing to purpose beyond the individual, equipping young people to act and work across lines of difference, and also we also aim to be inclusive and have a group of young people who reflect society's diversity. We are addressing the world's leadership crisis because there is a crisis, as we've seen with our most recent leadership, even in this country. We are addressing this crisis by changing the composition, the operating system, and the impact of the next generation of leaders. The Global Citizen Year offers two different experiences. The first one is the Academy, which is online. And then we have the fellowship, of which I am an alum, both of which select talented students who represent diverse backgrounds, and we equip them with empathy, agency, and global networks to drive impact today and over the course of the rest of their lives. This Leadership in Action speaker series is actually one of the most popular aspects of the Academy program, if you're interested. And we're all especially excited to host this event with Civics Unplugged, and I'm excited to have Angel tell you a little bit more about Civics.
Yeah, hi. Once again, super grateful to be here. Really excited for this collaboration. Civics Unplugged is basically this nonprofit social enterprise on a mission to empower the leaders of Gen Z to build a brighter future for humanity. So our goals very heavily align with those of Global Citizen Year, and this is a really transformative work that we're trying to do, especially in such a bleak age in which, like you said, Naila, there's such a crisis and a need for leaders who are willing to work across quote unquote party lines in order to get things done, right? So Civics Unplugged is centered around like a 3-month fellowship program in which students, typically ranging from, I think our youngest was 12 to 18, are empowered, and they represent every region of the country, and we've expanded globally. We have a lot of members in India and the UK, I also believe. So yeah, very much a global movement that we're all trying to start here. And I'm very excited to once again be here in conversation with both Naila and Baratunde. Naila, are you there?
Yes. Okay. So yeah, welcome Baratunde. We can get into our questions. So just so everyone is aware of how this will work, Angel and I will engage in a conversation with Baratunde, and after we will take student volunteered questions. So Baratunde, let's start with the only thing that the audience knows about you so far, which is your name, Baratunde, which means one who is chosen. Can you tell us, in your opinion, one thing or some things that you feel like you have been chosen to do in this life?
Okay, we're just jumping at the deep end of the pool right off the bat. Naila showing up with the artistic, dramatic zoom look. I said it before, I'll say it more publicly. It's a good look. Um, Chosen. Yeah, I should clarify the meaning of the name because sometimes folks are like, "Oh, you're the chosen one. You're here to save us all." I'm like, "No, no, 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 no. Things don't end well for the chosen one. One who is chosen. It's a much more loose connection to the future. There could be a lot of us who are chosen, like y'all right here, also chosen. Um, I think that I have in part been placed here to tell stories and to translate through the use of my words. I love words, writing them, saying them, singing them. They are the raw material out of which I try to sculpt a sense of reality that makes a bit more sense, a set of possibilities that I'd rather live in than maybe the one I was born in to some degree. So the use of story to translate, um, explain real hard stuff without making it sound like real hard stuff is one of the things that I, who am just one among many, have been chosen to do. I wanted to acknowledge Global Citizen Year, Civics Unplugged, Zoom, without whom we wouldn't be here at all. And I find it a little suspicious that Zoom worked so well during the pandemic. Like they were. Why were you so ready though? Really, what did you know and when did you know it? These are the questions I would ask. If somebody put me in charge of like the International Criminal Court, I'd be like, bring Zoom in. We got to talk. And I thank you for all who are here, the participants. I checked out some of the backgrounds. Just want to give some love to Rocio Avila. Your headphones are dope. Gerald Acorley, best shirt. Montserrat Mendez Alcudia, dope name. And that's coming from Baratunde Thurston. So don't change a thing. And Gina, represent DC, Chocolate City, where I was born and raised. Though I'm coming to y'all now live from Los Angeles, California. There's many more shouts and praises, but that's what jumped out to me. We can keep moving now. Thank you.
Absolutely. That was wonderful. Yeah, shout out to everyone here. Thank you guys for being able to come and witness like this greatness. So there's that. Baratunde, I am Nigerian American. My parents immigrated, I don't even know how long ago. And I'm sure you know this as it is your name, but there has been some kind of controversy surrounding the Baratunde versus Babatunde debate. And for people who aren't aware, I would say Babatunde is Yoruba, which is an ethnic tribe in Nigeria. It is a Yoruba name. And there have been people who have kind of been very, I guess,
Spirited.
yes, spirited around the variation of your name. So I wanted to know if you could just get into that, especially connecting it back to, I don't know if you've seen this, but online there's been a flaring up of the infamous diaspora wars, if as I would call them. So yeah, I was wondering if you could get into like the dynamics between like your name, how like that has informed your experience of being Black within Blackness in and of itself.
Yeah, thank you for that. So the diaspora wars is just what the colonizer wants. So I'll start with that. Now, I was born a long time ago in 1977 to Arnita Lorraine Thurston and Arnold Robinson. And they were, as my mother especially, in the midst of an awakening of their deeper selves that had been so denied by the programmatic dehumanization of Blackness here in the United States. So my mom was reading things that no one ever showed her that she could read and learning things that she was never meant to learn in terms of Black history and broader Black identity outside of being slaves, which is a very recent update to the operating system of Blackness in America versus our long-standing history here. So at this time in the 70s, a lot of books came out to cater to this desire of Black Americans to reconnect with something other than slavery. And books, here's how you name your child. That's basically books of African names so you can reestablish this link that was severed by the chattel slavery trade and the Middle Passage and all that horror. So my mom found a book. And she had been warmed up to this idea. She lived in an apartment complex in DC filled with the diaspora, Ethiopians, Eritreans, Caribbean folks, South Americans, and Nigerians. And so when she found the name Babatunde in the book, which had translated, according to her understanding, literally as father returns, some close approximation to that, it spoke to her because she really loved her grandfather and she missed him dearly. And he was one of the few family members that she actually felt a kindred connection to. There'd been a lot of abuse and stuff from others. So invoking his spirit in my arrival was part of her intention. The book went on to say, like, hey, this name also means one who is chosen, which I don't know if that's legit Yoruba history. That's an interpretation in a book that a hungry Black American found. But it spoke to her because I was very late arriving. Like, there's CP time and then there's BT time. And I showed up very late after a series of miscarriages that my mother had, like many, many miscarriages. So me even being here was like, it's about time and a bit miraculous. And then the book finally said, hey, there's a version of this name that you could spell it different if you want. You could use an R instead of a B, Bara instead of Baba. Every Nigerian I've ever met, every Yoruba person in particular I've ever met, agrees that that is not true. That's just a different word. Like Baba is not Bara. That's a whole nother word. But the ship has sailed. And so I am this version. And earlier in my own career, I got a lot of heat from Nigerians who I would meet in real life or online increasingly. And I don't know if you've ever like been around Nigerians. They're not shy. You know what I'm saying? Like they will voice through whatever means are necessary. So it ended up, I was actually very annoyed and like angry about it for a time. And then I got over it. And more other people have gotten over it too. It's my name. And what I really, it's even more unique. And the meaning is what I give it. But yeah, the claim, exclusive claim and ownership and all that, kind of a distraction. And I hope that the lack of pushback I get about the existence of me is a sign of that happening more broadly. Probably not, but I can hope.
No, thank you so much for that answer. And as someone who does actively live with Nigerians, I can definitely verify.
Not the shyest people.
Not at all. No, that was definitely such a beautiful story. Especially just thinking about the nature of people who bear your skin color and who have been socialized as Black, as you have been, questioning their existence, because questioning your own existence, because you might not have like direct relational ties to the quote unquote motherland, but you know, it's all a construct.
It really is. Yet that construct has real consequences.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah.
So speaking of Blackness, the next thing I want to speak to you about Baratunde is identity. And before we get into that, let me tell you all a little bit more about Baratunde. Baratunde is a comedian, a writer, and a cultural critic. He is responsible or partially responsible for helping to create The Daily Show along with Trevor Noah. He has a very popular podcast right now, an acclaimed podcast called How to Citizen. He has several TED Talks that you all should probably watch. I know there's one that at least has over 1 million views. I've watched all of them. I think they're excellent. Baratunde is a very wise person with a lot of insight on race, politics, and even the outdoors. Very well-rounded individual. And he wrote the book How to Be Black. In case any of you were wondering, if you don't read that book, you are racist. This comes from Baratunde himself, just to let you know. So you might want to go out and get a copy of it just so you can no longer be racist. So identity. You just spoke about how super Black your name is, and you grew up in DC with a diversity of Black people, but you went to Sidwell Friends, which, if you don't know, is the school that Obama's daughters went to. Now they go to Harvard, where Baratunde also graduated from, his alma mater. It was majority.
See, she started talking trash about Sidwell and Harvard, and Zoom was like, we don't do that. So we're gonna have to mute you, Naila.
Oh no. Oh my goodness, this is very funny. Well,
Great close. You want to pick up where she left off, Angel?
I will do exactly that. And I can definitely say that I am plussing the trash talk on Harvard. I'm a Yaley, so
Oh no! Oh no!
diametrically
Sorry. Privilege wars time. Hold up. You went to that antiquated patriarchal monetized institution, which is
oh
totally
no.
different from my antiquated patriarchal, highly monetized institution. How dare you? How dare you?
It's almost as if we're two sides of the same coin. Naila, do you want to pick up since I think you're back online?
Oh,
Sure.
yeah, and you faded off just so you know, right as you mentioned Harvard is
I
what
noticed that.
you
A
got
little
cut.
suspicious, but no. So you went to Sidwell Friends, a majority white institution at the time and presently, and your mom sort of sought to offset that overwhelming whiteness with overwhelming blackness, and she enrolled you in an Afrocentric program in DC to sort of instill you in a foundation of racial consciousness and blackness. So since childhood, blackness was very central to your identity. Would you say that blackness is still central to your overall identity? If not, why?
These are very good questions. Yeah, very central in it's part of my profession. I'm professionally black. I write about race stuff. I talk about it. I get paid to talk about it. I am it, but it's something I've kind of put to work, and in that sense, it's central. But the way it's central is evolving. I think there can be. I'm gonna try to speak in a way that I think will apply beyond the US or beyond blackness as an identity, because it probably applies in so many different dimensions. When I became aware that this society was so designed for me to fail, I got really mad. I was like, wait, so we used to own land and we don't anymore? We used to live over there, now we live over here? The slavery thing, like as a whole chapter of grievance, is still pretty present. It's a significant failure of us as a species to interact reasonably and compassionately with one another. Uh, so I was just angry. I was an angry little black kid, uh, learning all the things that I've been lied about to. Like anybody be mad at your parents. Like, okay, take Santa Claus, right? And multiply it times a million. Like the day you realize there ain't no tooth fairy, there ain't no Santa Claus. How did all the adults come together to conspire and lie to me about this? You too, uncle? That's my wife. She got super mad when she found out there was no Santa Claus, and she thought adults had betrayed her. And in some ways, adults have betrayed us all, especially those of you inheriting this planet, which when we got it wasn't this bad off. We're trying to pawn off a broke down car or something brand new, and that's not it. That's not the truth. So the centrality of blackness to my identity was forged, at least in my early awareness, in anger and disappointment and a sense of betrayal. Then came struggle. Then came pride, somewhat forced pride. Got to be proud to be black. Say it loud. I'm black and I'm proud. Got to work harder though. Got to work twice as hard to get half as far, which if you're doing the math is 4x what should be required to cover the same distance. I'm quadruply exerting myself to cover the same ground. Back to anger. But also pride because I can. Said, well, Harvard, that proves that I'm worthy of something. I'm 43 years old now, and I'm not fighting as hard. I'm not as angry, though I know even more. I'm exhausted sometimes. I'm irritated that we have to keep repeating ourselves across many generations, singing the same damn song through different genres, whether it's the drum or blues or hip hop. It's the same song. But I'm also at more peace with blackness as a part of my identity and more open to grounding that in joy, in expression, in creativity, in rest even, and not just being aligned with anger, struggle, or exertion, which so much of that identity has been tied up in those things. And it's like, yeah, black is cool. We're proud, excited to be black. But being black, capital B, capital B, is tiresome in the way that so many of us are asked to be, and some of us sign up for. And I am starting to put that burden down.
Profound. Thank you so much for that. I think unless we speak about it, sometimes we forget the complexities of Blackness and race in general, especially in this country. But you spoke about sort of laying it down and experiencing your Blackness in more of a joyful way. And I wonder if this has anything to do with your ability to include all of your interests in your career. Because of course you're professionally Black, but you have a show coming out with PBS in 2022 about the outdoors, America Outdoors, right? You're exploring another interest of yours. You worked for The Onion. You're a comedian, you're funny, or you're into technology, right? Your mother was a computer programmer. So you have all of these different aspects to your identity outside of Blackness, and you've been able to sort of geniusly combine them all to have this super personalized career. Do you have any, well, first of all, can you tell us about that? And then do you have any advice to our students about creating a similar career path that's very personalized?
Yeah, it it wasn't easy. It isn't always easy. I'm not done. I don't think I'll ever be done. We're all unfinished. Um, but I can remember trying to fit inside of various boxes and margins and buckets, and part of me hanging out the edge doing some other thing. Uh, Early childhood, being one of the smart kids in the gifted and talented program at my public school, and playing soccer, and doing taekwondo, and having friends and feeling kind of cool. Not super cool. Girls definitely didn't think I was cool back then, but I was having fun and playing and exploring in a way that a child can before the world tries to smack you down and say you're only allowed to do this piece of you. And so for a lot of my childhood, I had a compartmentalized experience of life. I would, do this after school advanced program with these kids over here. I do this youth orchestra program with those kids over there. I'd be on the track team with these kids over here, and hanging out with the audiovisual theater kids over there, and the computer kids and the black, and exhaustion, hyper stretch. And professional life was the same. I was sneaking in my comedy. I graduated college in 1999, and I took a corporate job, kind of in technology, kind of in business, kind of at the intersection of both. And all this creativity, all this like easy flow was bottled up at night in smoke-filled rooms with drunk people, in comedy open mics. And a whole different Baratunde would come out. And I had a blog, but it was anonymous. I didn't want anybody to know. And so I'm cramming and writing during my lunch break. Corporate, lunch break for writing. Corporate, go home and go out and be Baratunde, funny guy on stage. Over and over and over again. Until approximately 2007. So if you're doing some math, that's 30 years after I was born. When I got to New York City and I started working for The Onion, and that was a single place where I could do a tech thing and a comedy thing and a political thing, all with one healthcare plan. Changed. It was like, oh, I don't have to be so hyper split. And even then, I was always doing my own thing. I still did my stand-up stuff on the side, but I was around people who understood what that was, and I got funnier because of them. My environment started to enhance these extra parts of me that earlier environments had tried to sever. And there was a long path to try to find a place like that. I was there for 5 years. It was the best job I ever had, including The Daily Show. But The Onion it hit me at the right time. And 2007 to 2012, really magnificent. So my advice based on my experience, one, try things. Just there can be a lot of external pressure to be things we're not into, or to stop things before we even get to express curiosity about them. And parents in particular, they're stressed out about our futures, and they impose that stress on us. Almost always not maliciously. A few parents are actually malicious and are a problem, but most doing the best they can. They don't know this world. You know what I mean? It doesn't look like the world they grew up into. Like for your childhoods versus mine, even that 20-ish year gap is a big difference in the gap that a parent has with their own child. So try to make space to experiment and try something. When you love something, keep working at it. It may take a long time. It took years for me to be able to actually earn a living doing the variety of things I would say I loved. And it's not an unmitigated good, because then the thing you love is your job, and that's not like, whatever your job is, even if it's doing a thing you love, is still a job. It still has like office politics and BS and reports and, obligations. So take time, create space to experiment, expect that nothing's going to happen very quickly, and stay open to the indirect possibilities. I think the last thing is, I thought if I could forge a way to put all this together, I'm like, oh, I guess I'll be a professor. And for a while I was like on this track because professors get summers off and I could explore whatever I want, get paid to learn. I never ended up being a professor, but I still do some kind of educating. I'm addressing crowds of people on some basis of knowledge and experience. And but if I was rigid about the form that my life would take, I might not have been open enough to enjoy where I landed. Or have I landed? Where I'm hovering over. I'm like hovering. So yeah, I'll stop there because I could probably spend an hour on that. I don't want to do that to you.
I hope you guys are taking notes. Don't be too rigid. You kind of have to flow through life. Also be patient. Also, really good advice. Thank you, Baratunde. Angel, do you want to continue something else?
Sure. I very much so appreciative of the advice. I'm actually taking notes. I have like my iPad here. So yeah, no, that's very good, especially too, I know like a lot of us have parents who have fallen, I guess, victim to the doctor, lawyer, engineer complex.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very comforting to see that, or to hear and see that that is not the only pipeline to quote unquote success or stability. Yeah. So yeah, thank you so much for that. Speaking more about like one of the things that you're extremely passionate about, How to Citizen, your podcast, which is absolutely amazing. I don't know, I've been grappling with how specifically Generation Z has been, I guess, socialized into this world of into this world in which how to be a citizen, how to be a good citizen has been evolving, especially thanks to the rise and ever-present exposure of technology, right? Growing up in the age of the internet is extremely difficult. And I would say one of the most important things when it comes to engaging actively as a citizen is being equipped with information. But as you know, headlines go extremely quickly. And unfortunately, those headlines aren't always delivered in the best faith and are like riddled with biases and whatnot. So I, for one, and a lot of my friends tell me this, we have so many like late night conversations, have been pretty, unfortunately, like desensitized to the media. And that isn't really great, especially with everything happening all at once, it's not a great state of mind to be in. So I was just wondering whether you could give us some advice as to how we can slowly resensitize ourselves to the consistent ailments that the world is going going through in order to become like a more effective citizen.
When you say you've become desensitized, what does that experience mean for you? How does it show up?
That's a really good question. For me, it means it takes on a lot of different it manifests in a lot of different ways. So if I'm on social media scrolling through Instagram, I see someone post an infographic about some terrible tragedy that's happening in a different state or in a different part of the world. I say, oh, that's really unfortunate. I repost the infographic. It's out of sight, out of mind. And moving on to the next story that's posting about a new tragedy that I should be aware of. And I post that on my story, and I'm continuing the cycle while at the same time being exhausted by the cycle. It's a mess. So there's that. I feel like I can pay attention for 4 seconds, and then I either move on to the next story or it gets too overwhelming and I try to numb myself by watching like stupid reality television. So I think that's how it manifests for me.
Yeah. Can you do something with me? Take
Yeah.
a deep breath in. We need to remember to do that. There is a lot of power in these supercomputers, and one of them is to keep us in a state of anxiety and want. And when we're in that state, we're expecting and looking for and swiping, we're not breathing. We've been promised so much connectivity, but we're disconnected from each other as a result. We're disconnected from ourselves as a result. We're disconnected from the literal world around us, even as we're finding out things from the world around us. It's a paradox. There's no easy way out of it. But breathing is very helpful, just to settle ourselves again, because we've been rattled intentionally and at a scale that our bodies were never designed for. We're not meant to have 1,500 friends. It is against our very nature to manage that many social connections. We're not meant to ingest as many images, as much stimulus as we get in an hour on any screen in our lives. We're out there supposed to be picking berries and running from antelope or chasing antelope or both. So we're well ahead of the curve that evolution laid out for us. And that's part of our magic as a species, is that we can also like exceed our own limits, sometimes to our peril, aka climate change. So, what has helped me? I feel the same things you feel. I feel a sense of like, there's nothing good happening in the world because I can on demand access a tragedy at any second. Or when I'm not even looking, it shows up and gets mixed in with cute baby photos and fun memes and dances. And then I feel like the asshole who doesn't care about other people. But we can't care about everybody equally all the time through all time. We don't scale. We're not servers. We're human beings. So I try to think about where I can anchor myself. What communities am I a part of? I've got my friend and family circle. I've got my geographic, like my neighborhood. I've got my hometown, even though I haven't lived there in a long time, I still have an affinity and want to keep up with what's going on there. And if I can weight my investment of energy toward those things that I've chosen, then I can let the other stuff in, but not too deep, and not let it constantly tug and distract me so that I'm only caring about whatever's in front of me at that time and not the person sitting next to me. My roommate, my sibling, my parent, my child, my lover. It's hard because these tools that we are in don't encourage that. And the business model of media that we are in also doesn't encourage it. It's sensational. And it is profitable by problem, not by solution. So the last piece of this, and it's why we created How to Citizen, it was like the initial inspiration, was I know the world is a garbage ratchet place. I already knew that. I don't need constant reminders of that. I need to know that somebody's trying to clean up this trash. Who are they? Where are they at? And how can I help? And I'm of an age when the United States was subject to these attacks on September 11th. There was a moment of pause. You know, the world stopped, much like it has for Pearl Harbor or George Floyd, for that matter. And in a moment like that, we have this opportunity for leaders to demand something more from us rather than something less. We're in an age where leaders demand less from us. Click this button. That's all you want from me? George W. Bush asked us to spend money and go to Disney World. That was his great ask of the American people in a moment of pause. We're in another kind of moment of pause. What's being asked of us? So I wanted to find out, can we ask something more? Can we find the people working on this stuff? Can we help them help us? And for your sense of desensitization, one way to feel reconnected is to be invested in a positive outcome. You know, fear can get attention, doubt and doom. You know, we will gather around that fire. But we will also gather around a fire of love and storytelling and possibility, not just like conflagration. And so if you can find the arrow pointing toward resolution, it may not ever get there, but heading in that direction, jump on that one. I'm mixing all my metaphors, arrows and trains, and whatever, but you get what I'm saying. And know that when it feels hard, you're not alone and you're not a failure because of it. You're not a shitty person because of it. None of us was designed to withstand this. That's just a fact.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. That was, yeah, sometimes got to remind ourselves. I don't know. I feel like as Gen Z, we're always told that we're going to save the world.
Oh, okay. I'm so glad you said that. Listen, there's not time to bullshit, y'all. You know what I mean? Like, there's just no time. I'm going to keep it as real as I can. If somebody tells you that it's your job to save the world, they're not worth listening to. Because by delegating a whole planet to one generation, they're abdicating their own responsibility to be a part of that solution. And it can be a well-intended thing, but it's usually a thoughtlessly well-intended thing. Some commencement speaker comes in, I get hope from the next generation because I know they'll figure it all out. What are you going to do? Wait? That's bullshit. We need all hands on deck. If you're 95, you still could do something. You can talk to your 94-year-old friends and tell them to vote a different way. If you're 5, you could do something too, but let's not burden a whole group of people. Just because you're young doesn't make you responsible for the entire future. I really want you to feel the flattery of comments like that, but try not to internalize the burden that coincides with such flattery. I don't think it's healthy. And given the state of our planet, you know, every generation has a set of challenges, some greater than others at a given time. World War II versus not during a time of World War II is a great global example. We're all in a World War III situation, and we literally don't have time. Every day we don't do something, we're making things worse for the future. We cannot afford to abdicate and delegate the responsibility for the whole planet to a few people because they're young. Get out of here with that. It's convenient, but it ain't helpful. And I think we need to stop it. So, you know, thank you for your compliments. I agree that we are invested in our future because we're hopefully going to experience it more, just the nature of time. But also, what are you going to do to help us? How can we join you in saving the world? What lessons can we learn from the shit you fucked up? Pardon my French. But like, thanks, Grandma. Thanks, Dad. Help me help you. All right. done, profanity hour's over. I get a little heated when the planet's getting a little heated. And I just read this book, The Uninhabitable Earth, and it's got me all twisted up. I'm like, the clock is ticking. So back to you.
No, thank you so much for that very spirited response.
I came off mad Nigerian, I think.
The Babatunde's coming out.
That's right. He's in there. He's in there.
Naila, do you want to ask the next question?
That's funny. Sure. So this is the leadership series. So I want to ask you about a time in your life that I have identified as leadership, and I'll see if you agree. When you were at Sidwell Friends, when you first started attending the school, people were calling you Barry or Barrington. Anything that was short for Baratunde was too long, too difficult. They decided on something easier. At some point, you decided to go through a renaming process where you wanted everyone to exclusively acknowledge you as Baratunde. And over a couple of years, you led the entire school to call you by your name. Did you feel like a leader at that time? If not, when in your life have you felt like a leader?
You know that song, Say My Name, Say My Name. I wrote that for them. That was the moment. That was the inspiration for Beyonce and the girls. I did not feel like a leader at that time, but I did feel empowered. And I think there's a connection. I was raised to speak up for myself, even and especially when adults are involved. And my mother walked this interesting line where she's like, look, these teachers, you should, listen to them, but they're not always right. Adults don't always know everything, and they're not always to be trusted. And I think she said that because she had been molested herself by adults who couldn't be trusted. So she had a literally intimate awareness of how adults can fail, how people in positions of authority don't always have the right answer, don't always have your best interest at heart. So that healthy skepticism was embedded very early, genetically, and also verbally into my being. The name thing was an extension of that because I have a great name. Baratunde is unequivocally, objectively dope, right? Like, that's just what it is. And I can't even take any credit for it. That's my parents did that. But they gifted me something. And the presumption that a lot of people had that they could change that without my consent, I'm gonna call you Barry. No, you're not. I mean, you can try, you can say those words. I'm not gonna respond to that. And so I had a year where I let that happen. And I, was in my elementary, I was Barrington, teachers there too. And you're a little kid, it's even harder to kind of stand up for yourself. But come 8th grade, and I've been going through this rites of passage program as well, this Afrocentric thing, parallel to Sidwell that you kind of alluded to earlier. I came back and I was like, we're done. We're done with this. It'll take as long as it needs. You're going to call me by my name. It was my Kunta Kinte moment from Roots. You're going to call me by my name. And I had to negotiate with people. So I think from a leadership perspective, I was learning to lead myself. It wasn't like I was trying to create followers or solve a massive global challenge, but I was learning to find the power that I always had that was laying there dormant, which is the power to insist on being addressed in a way that was befitting me. And I can't force people to say things that they're too lazy or uninterested in saying, but I can control how I respond. I just won't respond. Or every time you call me that, I will remind you, I prefer you not call me that. And that kind of is like an internal practice of commitment to myself that none of that was like the forethought. I wasn't going into this like, I'm going to learn a valuable lesson from this exercise, which is going to take like 3 to 5 years to pan out. No, I just wanted people to call me by my name. With the benefit of 30 years and the way you phrase that question, I'm thinking about it and I'm like, oh, was that a moment of leadership? In a way, yes, because it was internal anchoring. And it's very hard to lead when you don't know yourself. It's very hard for other people to follow when you're not clear on where you're going or the intention behind your motion. And that name thing, the intention was very clear. And there was negotiations involved with other people. Like, well, if I call you Baratunde, you got to call me this. And I was like, I can do that. It's compromise. It's deal making without compromising my values. And yeah, that was a big moment of leadership. I've had a few. And I've had moments where I've witnessed great leadership. I think, an example that's in my mind right now, because he showed up in my Instagram feed, a man named Shaka Senghor, is formerly incarcerated. I had the pleasure of meeting him years back and becoming friends and understanding a lot of his story. 19 years he spent in prison for a violent crime, a murder he definitely committed. And watching what he did with his life after that moment, for some people, if you take a life, that's also the end of your life. And society throws you away, and internally you throw yourself away. I'm a criminal. I'm a murderer. I am worthless. I'm the worst of the worst. Like, there's no shortage of language to think your ability to contribute to society is past. Society doesn't even want you. Maybe you don't even want you. And your family may not want you either. Shaka moved through that. He still did the crime. He also paid in the time. And part of what he started by doing was just talking to young people about his experience and writing and finding ways to communicate to them the gravity of that, why you don't want to do this. And millions of people have done stuff like that. He's one I happen to know, but I think of that as leadership. There was some sacrifice in it. There was a lot of heart and personality in it. There's deep credibility in it. If you hear from someone who was caught up in the drug game, like, the drug game's not so great, that's very different from a first lady saying that, who never did the drug dealing in that way. Maybe she worked for a pharmaceutical company, but we're not splitting hairs. So that's leadership can show up in many ways, and it doesn't have to be like an elected official or someone formally granted authority by some organization, like a business leader. It can be a member of a community reminding themselves that they're a member of a community and insisting on serving, even if parts of that community wanted to throw them away.
Thank you for mentioning the self-anchoring and the empowerment that you experience, because I think it's really important to acknowledge that the individual comes first in any form of leadership. And I think Civics and Global Citizen Year have kind of tapped into that reality and are trying to bolster that skill or that feeling of empowerment while we're still young. So right now, we are going to transition and take some student questions. So students, there's been a link posted in the chat. I'm sure you all have already started posting your questions. Huh?
Slide up. So pretty.
Oh, do you see it too?
I clicked the link.
Oh, okay.
I always click the link. I'm sorry. Maybe that's why our democracy in the state is in. People should
right.
Yes, I see. Keep directing, but I just like shouting out. I see some of these things. It's great.
Yeah. So we'll take a couple of questions for now. I see a question about global issues and race from Danielle Khan. So Danielle, why don't you take a moment and you can turn your camera on and unmute yourself, and you can ask your question directly to Baratunde.
Hello, sir. Nice to meet you. So it's an honor for me to speak to you. So my question is related to the race and the color. That how could we overcome this issue and try to build a good leadership in this global world?
Thank you, Danielle, and greetings halfway around the world from me. Because if it's all the way around the world, then it's just somebody in LA. But if you're like on the other side, then it's halfway around the world. There is, I don't think, an easy answer to your question, but it's a great one, and one we should constantly be working toward. There's, the divisions that we have around race and ethnicity have been a part of, our species for quite some time. So I don't think they're entirely going to disappear. I had hoped that something like COVID would be the alien invasion that we could use to unite us all against a common enemy. But even that tends to reveal divisions as much as it might heal them, it seems. Um, there are platitudes and sort of simple ways to try to address this. We're all the same on the inside. We're all part of the human race if we just believe that. And sometimes a platitude is true. There's a book that I'm going to recommend and a writer I'm going to recommend, Valerie Kaur, Kaur. The book is See No Stranger. Hopefully there are translations, because I think it'd be great to read it in everyone's native language as much as possible. Probably gets in a little deeper. But if not, it's still available. And the premise, she is Sikh, S-I-K-H, and the premise of her book is that we should see a stranger as a part of ourselves we do not yet know. And when I think about all that we can do to try to tackle global issues of race and ethnic cleansing, the whole thing, we can fund programs. We can certainly we can remove barriers through policy where possible. We can teach clearer histories so that we're not peddling lies and using those lies to exacerbate harms and disparate outcomes. But internally, I think a longer term solution has to involve us not feeling so separate from other people. And that's really hard to pull off because we are wired for that. There are people who teach a bogus race science that some people are just born better than other people. Every society has a version of that, along caste, along race, along gender, along all three, and then a few other things. And we have a sorting thing that's built into our evolution. We can overcome that. We've done it before. And I think it can stick better if we work on seeing other people not as other people. It's almost a spiritual level of awareness and connection with the idea of another life. And there's something sacred in that. That might work on a religious context for some people. So how we get there is an age-old challenge, and leaders greater than me have worked on it. They've often come back to love. After the marching and the walking and the petitioning and the demonstrating, their message gets whittled down, if they can live past age 20, to love. So can we create spaces where we're able to see ourselves in other people through art, through games, through the way we build our businesses and our companies, through the everyday activity? So it doesn't feel like a big race project. It just feels like the way we live. And I think if we can practice seeing ourselves in others and having others see themselves in us, then we'll at least reduce the level of outright race and ethnic based division and violence and pain in the world. It won't ever go to zero, but it can go down. We can be doing better. And there's something in that message of removing barriers between us that I hope will find a way to land more than it has already. Thanks for the question. You got me. That's a hard one.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. I think the same, sir.
Yeah.
Humans are social animals. So we cannot succeed without taking all of the members of the society. So we have to think like in general that we have to take all for the upliftment of society.
Agreed.
So
Well,
thanks a lot, sir,
thank
for
you
answering
so
my
much
question.
for your question and your answer. I like that.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, Danielle. Sakshi Pachori from India has a question about productivity. Sakshi, you can turn on your camera and unmute yourself when you're ready.
Gotta love that Zoom delay. Yeah. Ooh, the audio's not quite in yet. Okay, try now.
Okay, so my question is like, while looking back at your journey, so what were your qualities that pulled you back and how you overcame them? And what were the qualities that gave you a boost to continue and like not to have a like to have a not to give up attitude?
Yeah.
And what are your views and uh, continuing to my question, like what are your views regarding the spirituality?
My views about what?
I believe they said spirituality.
I'm thinking about if you can type that last
More
part.
through the entire talk I can. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I got the first two. My views on something something spirituality. It didn't, but if you're able to type it up, maybe I can try to tack it on the end. Uh, what were my qualities that gave me a boost, helped me move forward? High energy, belief in myself. That's a useful quality when you're taking on too much work. I could get by on little sleep during my youth. I don't recommend it, but it did help, and be honest about it. And and I think I'm a pretty good listener, and that's been very helpful as I've been called on to speak a lot and like express myself. It works better when the speaker is also a listener. And I think I have some qualities of paying attention where I can see things that others maybe don't see a connection that others wouldn't picked up on because they're not paying as much attention. Now, that doesn't work in all parts of life. My wife will tell you that. I don't see everything, but those have helped move me forward. Things that have held me back, qualities of myself that have slowed me down or hurt me. I think that lack of sleep thing, I have sometimes thought of myself as a meat-based machine, right? Where I can power through and suck it up and push past the limit. And that has sometimes lowered the quality of what I'm up to. It's made me unable to see those connections I just talked about being so able to see. It's affected my mood and made me crankier and less enjoyable to work with, or just gotten me sick, which makes me unable to show up in the way that I'd like to, or be around other people. So too much work is no longer a plus. It becomes a minus. And then I think I've been a lot of my analysis of the world has been that. It's been an analysis of the world. It's like an external focus. Like, I'll tell you why the US Republican Party is done wrong by this, and why colonialism is this, that, the other, and the climate crisis and the economic model. Capitalism needs to be totally redone. We should probably call it something else because we even gave it a bad name. The people who say they believe in it don't even really believe in it because they're more monopolists than anything else. I got that down. Where I have been very late is turning all that cognitive capacity and attention inward and challenging my sense of my own history and the stories that I came into this world with, my own identity, the things that I'm afraid of or ashamed of. And a lot of my work, I'm asking the world to like, look at the stuff, look at the hard parts. And in my own life, I hadn't been doing that. So I'm disconnected from my own work. And you find out a lot of people, I'm really good at doing your taxes. I'm terrible at doing my own. Really good at cleaning your house. My room is a wreck. And I wouldn't say my life is a wreck by any stretch, but by not looking at myself, I delayed some development on the external front too. So I'm working on integrating my external analysis and my sort of internal analysis into just being, and trying to have that be more consistent and more aligned. It's deep work. It's not always obvious, but it's very rewarding when I can find something in myself. I'm like, oh, that's kind of like that thing that I was talking about out there, that I read about out there. Because we're all people. So the micro is the macro, the small is the large, the personal is the political. And we'll get on spirituality some other time. I think I probably burned through time trying to answer both of those.
Your words were very inspiring, like throughout the talk and like your answer like this.
Thank you, Sakshi. Thank you, Baratunde. I think your spirit is felt as well. I think we can all make some assumptions about the type of spirit you have from our conversation today. Honestly, I have loved speaking with you, Baratunde, getting to know you. You are extremely insightful, and we can understand why you've spoke about your life experience a bit. Thank you so much, Angel.
Yeah, I echo everything that you just said, Naila. Thank you. This has been such an incredible opportunity. So much learning, so much internal transformation happening in just the span of an hour, probably less. So if that's what I'm feeling right now, I can only imagine what everybody else is feeling listening to you speak. So thank you so much for
You are
being
so welcome. May I add one hopefully small thing before?
Please, please.
So this is what we're working on. I think we're colleagues. We're working on creating a world worthy of our greatest selves. I think that's what this is. And the people here, especially, like you're here because you've seen it. You at least see the possibility of it. And so you're going to jump on a random Zoom with some random dude in California, right? You are going to sign up for a fellowship. You're going to put your name in the hat for this program or this academy because you know we can do more than we've been doing. And I think, back to the news desensitivity concept, Angel, it is so easy to fall into the despair around everything that's wrong. And despair, when it's justified, is like really hard to escape. Like there's data my despair is data backed. Okay. So don't just hit me with be positive. And we are ultimately making the whole world up. There's nothing we've inherited that we can't uninherit. There's nothing that we've built that we can't build differently or better or tear down altogether. Most of this stuff that we're in, a caste system, a gender system, a climate, like the people just made stuff up. They made up Bitcoin, they made up Apple computers, they made up Ted Lasso. They're like the British Empire is all just conjurings of our collective imagination. And we can imagine some doper stuff that fills in some of the gaps left behind by that previous imagination. We're living in an antiquated story. And I'm really excited to be sharing some space with some next generation storytellers so that we can co-author together something worthy of us, something worthy of the best of us. So it's my honor to be here with y'all, as I feel like I'm just hanging out with the homies.
Likewise, 100%, honestly. You guys can all see there's a survey that's been linked in the chat. Please take some time to fill that out after the call. Everyone, thank you again. It's been wonderful, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you, Baratunde, Angel.
Thank you.
you.
Bye, everybody.